Visitors, we can start. Next step. New host and speaker is Charly Harbord.
Okay, hello. So I'm the Director of Operations for Global Game Jam. I don't know if any of you know about Global Game Jam or what we do. My next few slides will tell you a little bit about us. So what is Global Game Jam? We're the world's largest game creation event, which is pretty cool. Last year, based on coming off of COVID, we had 33,000 participants in 681 locations, over 100 countries. They made 5,858 games. This is a lot. And so this talks about using games and collaborative games as a way to impact social benefit and social issues. So first off, let's look at who jams. In general, not really surprising, 73% are male, but 21% female, 4% non-binary, 2% prefer not to say. We've got hobbyists, we've got students, we have big companies, we have smaller companies taking part. Generally, Unity is the engine that's often used. Some people do use Unreal as well. What's interesting, if you look at the participant skill levels, we actually have quite a few participants who have shipped games. So these are industry professionals that are also coming back to join a game jam, partly because sometimes they just want to have a play and do something out with work. Sometimes they want to test an idea that maybe there isn't space in their work to do. But often it's just to have fun. A lot of people in industry have started out in Global Game Jam. So why Global Game Jam? So in general, our stats are very good. 88% overall satisfied with our experience, 56% first time. The interesting thing, so we've got 56% first time, people saying that they would join again, but also people that have participated for the first time generally come back and help others as well because they enjoy the experience and they want to pass on that knowledge and pass on those skills. So this is why something like a game jam is a very good collaborative experience for people. You can work in a team you've already formed, but you can also work with people out with your peer group. For example, my experience was golden. I met some amazing like-minded people who didn't look down on me for being inexperienced. Instead, they pushed me out of my shell and helped me to have fun. So we have jam sites that are ranging from 20 to 200 people at the event. And this really builds a sense of community. And when you can build a sense of community, you can build a sense of public activism. You can address an issue and you can do it in a way that is informed. So many jammers do go on to be organizers and mentors for the next years as well. This is another arm of this. So we're doing Global Game Jam next, and this is aimed at younger creators. So middle, high school, this sort of age group. They have a lot of activities, a lot of educational activities, teaching people how to work with games. So here in this picture, you can see they made custom joysticks with Arduino in Argentina. It's a really good way to prime people to go into game jams. It's also a good way for kids to learn skills that are maybe they would only learn in like a computer science class, but it's not taught by an actual expert. They tend to be taught by the PE teacher who's doing an extra class in computing. So even if you've never taught game making or game design before, we have a program. So obviously day one, we introduced the how to jam, what is a jam, what's the function of it. Day two, we sort of look at different parts of a game. Then prototyping and playtesting. Games as systems. So we talk about how the whole system, the ecosystem of a game works. And then thinking creatively about game ideas, exploring elements and mechanics in a creative way. One of the ethoses of this is that whatever background you have, whatever skills you have, they're transferable to game industry. Game industry isn't just coding, art, and producing. Audio people, are in desperate need. So then we form teams. They finalize the game ideas and begin work. There's a development day, and then they develop their game, and then they develop it further the next day and play test it. And then they finish the game. Now, what's good about this is it can fit into a school curriculum, and so you can explore a social issue that maybe you're studying in history or English or any other subject that you're learning. This is very easy to implement and to teach children a social issue in a way that they're actually really interested in. Because not everyone wants to open a history book and read, whereas this, you come out with a tangible outcome, like they've got a game at the end of it. And we're over. So this is Global Game Jam Next last year. You can see it's all over the world. And this year we're running it alongside the Game Jam, the actual Global Game Jam, so that they're tied together, because not many parents would agree to their 12-year-old child staying overnight for the weekend with a bunch of people making games. But this is like a 10-day thing, so you have more accessibility, it's easier. But the whole point of this talk is about using games or collaborative game experiences for social benefits. Now, one thing we did last year, and I was lucky enough to be involved in this before I started working for Global Game Jam, and they still hired me, is this, the Cultural Heritage Game Jam. So this was in partnership with the State Department in America, the Cultural Heritage Antiquities Task Force. And this was a really good experience. So my own background, I work in the field of using games to preserve indigenous languages, cultures, and traditions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment or two. But I want to talk about this. This is what we did through Global Game Jam. So as a partnership with the Cultural Antiquities Task Force, part of the US State Department. And it's very, very unique. We don't think it'd been done before. So it celebrated diverse cultural art, artifacts, traditions, and places. It helped disrupt cultural heritage looting, theft, trafficking, and destruction. So this is a way of teaching kids and teaching the jammers about these social issues, about cultural heritage looting, about appropriation, but in a way that was very, very accessible, and that they all learn a little bit more about their own cultures, but also about each other's cultures. It reinforced the importance of protecting and preserving cultural heritage. This is my main factor. So for me, language is so intrinsically tied with our culture that if we lose language, we lose bits of our history, bits of our culture, bits of our heritage, bits of who we are. And educated about the effects of climate change on cultural heritage. We're all very, very much aware that climate change is a real thing. When I grew up in Scotland, it used to be minus 27 in the winter, and it would snow for like 4 months every day. Now, no, it doesn't get past 0, maybe 0 and -5, very little snow. So, yeah. But what I want to do is show you some highlights of the Cultural Heritage Game Jam, and then we'll carry on. I would like to do that, but it's not going to play. This should be a video link. Nope. Lots of games, lots of people doing cultural things, enjoying themselves, really good music. Oh, there we go. Okay. How do I get my slides back?
I knew it was fun, and so at the last minute, I realized that I could probably spare the weekend and message him.
Right, so you can see there were participants from all over the world took part in this Cultural Heritage Game Jam. And part of the whole idea behind it was that it's not an exclusive thing. It's not, this is my culture, this is for me. This is our cultures, let's share, let's learn. The the participants found that they learned a lot more about their own cultures, about their own heritage, and ways that they can interact with the indigenous peoples that they lived with, and how to reach out and how to form these connections and relationships. The winning game was based on an ancient Mayan civilization, and the people that were there in Colombia, they spoke, there was just a very, very small amount of people that still spoke the indigenous language, and they worked with them to make sure everything was done honestly, respectfully, not appropriation. And so these are all really, really useful things to learn. But why game jams? So what is the benefit of a game jam for this kind of collaborative experience? Well, first off, it's multidisciplinary. So you can work with people from many different skill sets that you wouldn't normally work with. So if you're an artist, your friends tend to be artists, you hang out with other artists. You might not go and hang out with the coders. Not that there's anything wrong, but you tend to stick within your peer group. So this multidisciplinary gives you the advantage of working with people from other aspects, other skill sets. There's a time constraint, meaning you have to do it within a set time. So that helps you learn skills for task completion. Theme constraint, you have to base on a theme. Location constraint, well, now we're kind of hybrid. We can do it online to increase and maintain the accessibility. The game context and the jam environment, all of these things are really useful for life in general. If your boss tells you you need to create a report on red cars by tomorrow, you kind of have to do that. So these are really good skills to, learn early on. Benefits, there's a social capacity building. So I'm a very shy person. I do not like talking to people unless I've had some alcohol, and then I talk to everyone. But a kind of jam situation forces you into that collaborative workspace. As we saw before, the person said that they felt before they went to the jam that they would be, they didn't have any skills. They felt that they weren't educated enough for it, but in fact, it's a supportive environment. Networking. We all know about networking. This is why we come to these things. You listen to boring people like me talk, and then you go out and you network. Leadership and motivation. Sometimes you don't feel like you can be a leader, but in a jam situation or a game creation situation, you may be pushed or guided or allow yourself to have that leadership space. And these are really nice spaces to test this kind of social cues, your place in this sort of society that we're building. Obviously, soft skills are very, very important. You can be the best coder in the world, but if you don't play well with others, yeah. So intellectual capacity building, it builds your skills, it builds your IQ, that kind of thing. But it also helps with decision-making about careers. You maybe didn't think, and this happens a lot with Global Game Jam. We have people that join who are just trying it all for, poops and giggles. And then they discover, actually, they've got a skill that's transferable to the game industry. And we've had people change careers. It's helped them go forwards into this space. Conceptual learning as well. Getting that idea out of your head onto paper or onto a game. So all of these are really good soft skills that we can help when we're talking about sort of cultural change, societal change. How can we verbalize how we're feeling about something? Obviously, expressing, connecting, questioning, but then you have a tangible outcome. It's not just an exam score at the end. There's an actual game, which should hopefully be fun. Communication and interaction. So obviously, when you're doing a game jam, you have to communicate. If you're not communicating, it's not going to go very well. Teamwork, playing well with others, working in interdisciplinary teams, people coming from out with your peer group, adding another perspective. Respect for others, and this one is very important, to understand that not everyone is on the same length as you, the same bandwidth as you, and to be able to adapt to that. Also, independent working, and then group coordination. All of these are really good life skills to have. Additionally, and this is where the social issues or impact on social issues comes in, you're thinking in a diverse context. You're looking at a bigger picture. You're drawing from other people's experience. You're also going to the people themselves. So there's a phrase, nothing about us without us. And this means, so as a Scottish person, please don't make a game about Scottish people, but don't include any Scottish people in the development, because you'll get it wrong. I mean, you might not, but Wikipedia doesn't have the answers. So this is the idea of nothing about us without us, and that's transferable to every culture around the world. Problem-based thinking, creative problem solving. A good basis to create games that explore and celebrate different cultures, and traditional as well as tackle social issues in a manageable way. And it's about breaking things down into a space where people can accept them. So now I'm going to talk about something that isn't Global Game Jam, but I think got me my job at the Global Game Jam. We'll see. So, Kilted Otter Initiative. I'm Scottish, you can tell by the voice. I've lived in many different countries, and I have traveled around the world a lot in different cultures. And I came home and I realized I had done nothing for my own culture. So in Scotland, we have 3 languages, Scots Gaelic, Scots, which is like Old Lang Syne, the song everyone sings at New Year, that's written in Scots. And we have Doric. Doric is Aberdeenshire, where I'm from. Scots Gaelic, if we don't do something within the next 7 years, is gone. This is a story that I have found from all of my indigenous connections, whether they're in First Nations, whether they're in Otaria, it doesn't matter. If you're told you're not allowed to use your language for fear of a punishment, people stop using that language. The culture starts to become endangered. And I felt, and I always feel, if you can do something to help, then you absolutely should. So I set up the Kilted Otter Initiative, which is focus on preserving indigenous heritage, stories and cultures, and language, obviously. An off-the-beaten-track tourist experience. So you can come to Scotland, you can go to Edinburgh, you can spend stupid amounts of money in Edinburgh because it's very expensive. Or you can go and visit a real Scottish person and they'll tell you where to go, where we actually drink, where we actually eat, what the best places are. So this is what we wanted. Yeah, this is what we wanted for this game jam. However, we wanted it to be accessible. And this is during COVID. I started this in my bedroom because it's just as an idea after having a chat with my friend in Colombia, having a couple of drinks, and I thought, this is a really good idea, I'm going to do this. About a month later, I got a phone call, and it was my government. That's not a phone call you want. So, oh, what have I done? Because it could have been anything. And they said, look, we've heard about, through the grapevine, because Scotland's very small, there's only 5 million of us. Through the grapevine, we've heard about what you're doing. Can we give you some money? Okay, yeah, give me some money. And then Bord na Gaelic, which are the Gaelic arm of the government, then they phoned me up and asked if they could give me some money. And then MG Alaba, which is the Scottish BBC, also phoned me up. So I ended up with £75,000. And very, very strict rules on what I could spend it on. But why? So why for this jam? So it's a conduit to share our heritage and learn about other cultures and celebrate other cultures as well. This wasn't a jam just for Scottish people. This was a jam for everyone. And it was a way to share our heritage and also share our language and hopefully spark someone to get enough interest that they'd want to go on and learn about Scots Gaelic before it passes away. Promoting native speakers to become involved in every step. And this is the concept of nothing about us without us, right? So I'm not a native Gaelic speaker. Many, many years ago, I would have been. But unfortunately, I never had that opportunity. I'm learning now, and Gaelic is really hard, because the letters don't make any sense. But what we did do is we hired Scottish voice actors, like proper Gaelic voice actors, Gaelic musicians, we would give them a script, and then they would read it in Gaelic. So, I need to go to the park, say that as an angry old man. And then they would do that so that we had authenticity all the way through. With the jam also, we promoted women and non-binary people to take part. What was very, very interesting about this jam is over 50% of signups were female, which is kind of unheard of. And we were trying to work out why. Firstly, the otter's hella cute. Like, I drew that, so it's like, yeah, that's my baby. But there wasn't a game console, there wasn't a joystick, there wasn't a controller anywhere on the picture. It wasn't pixel art. So as soon as you do that, because as soon as you have pixel art, people go, oh, games, programming, men. So that made it more accessible. The other thing that we did is that we extended it. So we extended it over 2 months. So in 2 months, just doing 1 or 2 hours a week, you can create the same vertical slice, playable level that you could in a weekend, solid, working on a game jam. Which meant a lot more women were able to take part because maybe they had children. They could do an hour of a weekend, or, maybe they had to cook, or they had jobs. So we ended up with this really interesting sign-up from it. And we also promoted all ages and abilities. So we had children, and we ran this through the school as a school curriculum, which was easy for the teachers because they didn't have to do anything because we gave them all the materials. And then the teachers looked cool. So part of it, so instead of a theme as well, because we wanted to keep the culture and the heritage really at the main forefront, we gave every participant a research pack. And inside that research pack was Scots Gaelic language, Scots history, Scots culture, recipes, like my family recipes, other people's family recipes. And it became this lovely kind of digital encyclopedia of our heritage and shared between us. That was what was used for inspiration for the games. So we had a whole range of games. The only stipulation is you need to make it based on something in this theme pack. And it also meant that we had every week for twice a week for the whole 2 months, we had lectures, pre-recorded lectures with industry experts, game academics, history experts, language experts. We also had small interviews with Gaelic speakers. Everything was in sort of bilingual. So I've learned, like I said, a lot of Gaelic, but I can read it, but I cannot pronounce it. So yeah, 2 months, 3 months for schools, corresponding mini lectures, academic and industry experts. The other thing we did, because we wanted to make this as accessible as possible, is we had an absolute beginner's pack, which meant you could have no skills whatsoever, and we will take you through a game engine. We will teach you how to do all of these wonderful things. And that also worked very, very well with schools. So they started out in Scratch. Scratch is interesting. You can actually change it to Scots Gaelic. It's really, the list of languages is huge. It's very, very interesting. And then we had mentors and guidance from industry. But the impact, and this is all about social impact. How did that impact? Me personally, I got a really cool job. But also, I learned more about my country. I learned more about my language. I've made connections within communities that didn't really see that there was a space for them in the game industry. Like a Gaelic musician, of course there's space for you, right? Preservation of language and cultural stories, learning from other people, like other people's recipes, other people's grandmother's tales. That's really important, and that's something that hits your heart quite strongly. Connection during difficult times. Now, times are more difficult now, I understand, but this time, this was COVID, and everyone had been locked in their houses for a year at this point. We were all pretty sick of it. And this was a way of building friendship groups, of connecting with each other. And a creation of a model for further language and cultural games practice. So this model that I created, I've now given to UW-Madison in America, university, and they're teaching this in their school and involving indigenous peoples as well. Anyone that wants to use this model, I will give you all of the materials, because it's not about me making money, because I can't make money at this, but it is about sharing culture, sharing practice, and I think that's really important. Now, a lot of this came from one paper, just from the structure, understanding the benefits of game jams, exploring the potential for engaging young learners in STEM. I used to be an academic, so I'm used to doing this kind of crap, so I'm sorry if it's not your thing, but I would recommend you look at that paper. So, I would just like to say thank you all for having us here. Our hearts go out to everyone here. So, Slavia Ukraini.
So, like, maybe it's a personal one, but how it all started with this urge to, to learn more about your culture. What was this, like, I guess the story about few glasses and all this stuff, but what was this trigger that made you think of, okay, I need to learn more about my culture and rebound with this?
Okay, so my second language is Mandarin. If someone speaks to me in a language I don't understand, my instant reaction is to speak Chinese back. That only works in China or in Chinese restaurants. Anywhere else doesn't work. So, and I've spent so long in other people's cultures and learning about them and loving that so much that when I'd read a report by University of the Western Highlands that said the decline of Scots Gaelic, that really hurt me. It's like, this is my heritage that's going. This is a part of me that my son will never know. And I speak Doric at home to my son, and Doric is another type. So, Kimara Hashav is how are you in Scots Gaelic. I felt like, or Fuse your dues is in Doric. Fuse your dues translates to how are your doves. So these are things that we need to preserve. And so the whole point of this Kilted Otter and the Cultural Heritage Game Jam, all of these things we're doing, is if we can spark one person to be interested, to learn, then we're doing better than we were before. And so when we're running it again this year, we're actually giving free Gaelic lessons. So every week people can join and learn Gaelic. You don't have to be Scottish, you don't have to put on a Scottish accent when you speak it, but even just to listen. It's quite a lyrical, beautiful sounding language, but it's a connection to who you are, and I think we're all feeling that very much right now. We have this deep desire to be connected to our home, our roots, what makes us us.
Thank you.